this Parisian catalyst of 1886 to 8. The concert dependence of music must have stacked the odds against a Van Gogh as composer, though in poetry Rimbaud came near enough. His Season in Hell, record of a destructive friendship, Verlaine, its foolish virgin, slave of the infernal bridegroom. He was almost a child. I forgot all my human duty to follow him. He is a demon. C'est un démon, vous savez. Ce n'est pas un homme. From that demon to that foolish virgin, the letters of 1873. Come back. Everything will be forgotten. Yes, I was in the wrong. Be brave. Answer me quickly. I cannot stay here much longer. Yours all my life, Rimbaud. So, while waiting for your wife and your death, you are going to struggle, wander about, and bore people. But it is you who will be wrong in the end, because even after I called you back, you persisted in your false sentiments. Think of what you were before knowing me. Now, 15 years later, Van Gogh's chairs, his own with the pipe, that of Gauguin, his guest, with the candle, mark that other love-hate, when an imagined accord broke under the nerve-frayed fact, and Van Gogh sliced his ear, sent a piece of it to a prostitute, beginning the reductive confinements which would grind to his suicide, as if life had to hold to norms of outmoded pretense or tear itself to pieces, the vulnerability of avant-garde. From the bohemian modernity of Paris, it is strange to turn to the romantic lingering of Germany, Berklin's pagan make-believe, to sense its Dionysiac affinity with Mallarmé's faun eclogue, and at the same time note the demarcation that in Berklin, as in late Brahms, romantic longing still accepts the old forms. Its symbolist quarrel with the space-time fabric of will and cause has not yet disabled the harmonic and representational modes, the reason and morality of bourgeois assurance. That is the break which drives us forward from Brahms and Berkeley. To Debussy's faun setting, with post-impressionist Gauguin, who also began with Pissarro. Here, 1893, space itself, like chordal harmony, invokes a dissolving magic. So Maeterlinck, the same year, in Pelias and Melisande, for which Fauré, Debussy, Schoenberg, and others would compose music, suspends a mystery beyond fathomable ground, vague as the forest pool where Melisande loses her wedding ring. Golo to Melisande in the wood, come with me. The night will be very dark and cold. She, where are you going? He, I do not know. I am lost also. The irony of lost guide. Venez avec moi. La nuit sera très noire et très froide. Où allez-vous? Je ne sais pas. Je suis perdu aussi. Henri Rousseau, le douanier, customs man, found his way by a self-taught primitivism of naive vision and dream color through the same barrier of the objective and outward into a mystery more immediate than Gauguin's, some haunted realm of the form, where the symbolist flows over into the surreal. This sleeping gypsy of 1897, gone unanswerably beyond the phenomenal veil. At the same time, Redon, completes the circle to a more abstract handling of Moreau, this one-eyed cyclops rising like a phallus over the earth-vaginal fold of the sleeping Galatea. Dream changes rung on Mallarmé. Ripe pomegranates purple burst and murmur with bees, and our blood aflame for her who will possess it flows for the timeless swarm of all desire. At the hour when this wood is tinged with ash and gold, a feast flares up amid the extinguished leaves. Etna, on your slopes, by Venus visited. In Degas, Impressionist realism broke through a first devotion to anger and an interest in Moreau. As with the naturalism of Zola or de Maupassant, Hardy's satires of circumstance, or Chekhov's heartbreak comedy, the content of civilized despair is carried over into an objective lightening of technique. So the pain of Ibsen's Ghosts, 1881, yields to the irony of The Wild Duck, 1884, the fabric of lie, kinder than the cleaver of truth. In this study called Absinthe, a laceration, as in Dostoevsky or in Gorky's lowest depths, seems less the work of philosophic pessimism than of accident, as in the snapping of a camera. Where the world falls in on itself with hardly a whimper, the challenge of Mussorgsky's eerie pictures, this ballet of chicks in their shells, will bleed through the lightest 1880 Scherzo Valse by Chabrier. In that absinthe context, the radiant delights of theatre and ballet, which Degas painted from the early 70s until increasing blindness drove him in the 90s to cloud-rich pastels and finally to modeling. Death, he would say, is all I think of. Form a contrast so polar, one has to ask, is this realism or an escape into artful dream? Or is realism itself the escape, the earth lingering of the sleep song in Faust? Some nostalgia of the infinite was driving through Degas' Absinthe and beyond, seizing on maladies of body or soul, avant-garde strategy of creative negation, turning vulnerabilities into powers. So with the high-born dwarf Toulouse-Lautrec, in this portrait of Maxime de Thomas, bohemian connoisseur, life deformity speaks oracular depression, biding the next thrust of the style apocalypse. While Henry George, American economist, who died in 1897, wrote of other things than art, as public spirit is lost, as reforms become hopeless, then in the festering masses will be generated volcanic forces. Strong, unscrupulous men will become the exponents of blind popular passions, and dash aside forms that have lost their validity. If Toulouse-Lautrec ever inclined to genial affirmation, obverse of the de Thomas pathology, it is in this 1894 evocation called The Bed, though like any obverse, it affords another view of the same coin. So Joyce's brothel of Circe would yield in Ulysses to the bed of Molly Bloom. She reclined semilaterally, left hand under head, right leg extended in a straight line and resting on left leg, flexed in the attitude of Gare Tellus, fulfilled, recumbent, big with seed, thinking joyful adultery. He does it and doesn't talk. I gave my eyes that look with my hair a bit loose from the tumbling, and my tongue between my lips up to him, the savage brute. Thursday, Friday, 1, Saturday, 2, Sunday, 3. Oh Lord, I can't wait till Monday. Limit of Bosch's lovers in the passion fruit. Economist Henry George concludes, the sword will again be mightier than the pen, and in carnivals of destruction, brute force and wild frenzy will alternate with the lethargy of a declining civilization. Ensor, Flemish contemporary of Dutch-French Van Gogh, though Ensor lived on, was possessed by symbols of destructive carnival, as in this detail from his huge 1888 entry of Christ into Brussels. How the demons of Bosch and Bruegel in Ensor's Ostend isolation bear down angels with the vials of wrath. They had staged a romantic comeback in Hugo and Windy Wirtz. Now the expressionist fin de siècle opens to them. But, as in Proust, the closing grim masquerade of aging duplicities would resolve to an art of timeless associations, so Cézanne, the same year as Ensor, had distilled carnival into something quite different. Here estrangement and transvaluation, since no one can explain what is humanly intended, have been lifted to a well-being as enigmatic as any in Don Quixote, though of the order, as we implied with Seurat, of Chekhov's 1903 Cherry Orchard, that sublimation of pain into incongruous laughter. It seems the right genius could ride those alternate carnivals of destruction and the lethargy of a declining civilization, winning its art image cleansed in the abstract. Back to the unfathomable vitalities of ages to which understanding and causal entry no longer apply, this Maya terracotta of about the 9th century, where representational refinement almost makes us one with its aristocratic herald, O King, and we cannot go on, because time and the Spanish auto-da-fés have left us ignorant of whom he would address or what he might say. So we can only repeat, as with Cézanne's willful suspension, magical. But with Cézanne we have a context, life, a history in which we share the rebellion that spanned Europe from this 1866 teardrop Magdalene called Sorrow, with Mussorgsky's Catacombs from the 1874 Pictures at an Exhibition, to this Cézanne Old Woman with a Rosary of 1900, rim of no man's land. In that field of abstraction, Cézanne's landscapes, bathers, the mysterious Mardi Gras, assume a function the pre-Columbian has lost, to shape from romantic angst an Aquarian containment. Over 40 years, Cézanne was forging that heart of darkness from some tests of the d'Urberville's pain. As if in the poetizing of cyclical fall we had gone from Arnold's disenchantment, years hence perhaps may dawn an age more fortunate, alas, than we. For the world which seems to lie before us like a land of dreams hath really neither joy nor love nor light. Through Nietzsche's 7 seals, if I have come as a cleansing wind to old charnel houses, how could I not burn for eternity the ring of the return, denn ich liebe dich, o Ewigkeit, to what Yeats would distill from that, and from his own crazy Jane. What matter though numb nightmare ride on top, and blood and mire the sensitive body stain? What matter? Out of cavern comes a voice, and all it knows is that one word, rejoice. It was easier to inherit Cézanne's abstraction than his Olympian maturity. Picasso had to begin 1901 again with disillusion, so later with Joyce and Eliot. Even Yeats had opened his poetry with "The woods of Arcady are dead," his plays with "The world's more full of weeping than you can understand." It was a blue mood the young Stravinsky, so time-tied to Picasso, would exploit in the lullaby of the Firebird. But as Stravinsky, out of nostalgic sleep, could always stage a Firebird victory, Picasso's virile force had begun by 1906 to break the blue spell. And what could better precipitate an energized opposite than the absolute magnitude left of Cézanne's bathers, this standing youth, to receive a softer poignance in Picasso's Boy and Horse, led without rope, a man-brute meld. It was Rilke who would write in 1907 of that development in me which corresponds to the immense forward stride in the Cézanne paintings, while his sonnet on an archaic torso of Apollo, how it breaks out of all its contours like a star, for there is no place that does not see you. You must change your life, points as much to Cézanne and Picasso as to the early Greek. While Picasso was moving through blue and rose toward Negroid and Cubistic, an ecstatic complement appeared in pure color, those Dionysiac fauves led by Matisse, most versatile and life-loving of them. Though darker Man, 1911, would turn such pastoral dream with Death in Venice, Aschenbach, Brook of Ashes, to the promiscuous orgy, grenzenlose Vermischung of his own fall. As for Derain, this 1906 Lestat, with Dufy, Vlaminck, Braque, and the rest, who would have believed that such airs of individual outbreak, joined in a group fervor, could become almost indistinguishably charged? Yet how many composers of the time, from the older Debussy to the rising generation, might share in the designation fauve? By 1907, the last movement of Schoenberg's second string quartet advances from chromatic tonality to the atonal setting of George's Transport and Rückung. I breathe an air from another planet. Ich fühle Luft von anderem Planeten. Also in 1907, Georges Braque, at the limit of fauve possibility, was about to join Picasso in the sterner analysis of Cubism, while from Central Europe, Bartók, in the first quartet of 1908, would mount the same wild Pegasus. Had not Rimbaud, more than 30 years before, at the drunken break to tears of the Bateau Ivre, launched the arrow of such flights to come? I have seen sidereal archipelagos and islands whose delirious skies open to the voyager. In these unfathomed nights do you sleep your exile, millions of golden birds, O future vigor? Rilke of that future, 1912, first Duino elegy. Fling the emptiness from your arms into the spaces we breathe. Maybe that the bird should feel the expanded air in more intimate flight. The crested wave still breaking. 37 years after Rimbaud's South Sea frenzy, I have watched the fermentation of enormous swamps where giant serpents devoured by bedbugs fall down from gnarled trees with black scent. Picasso, 1908, as by a voodoo of jungle and negroid, hammers blue period loss. Hurl the emptiness from your arms into primitive and cubistic gain. 4 years later, Stravinsky would break into the fertility climax of the rite of spring. What was in fact longing over into the new century, some dinosaur upheaval through the crust of civilized restraint, romantic idealism, and ennui, was deeper than sense, beyond waking control, as if suppressed demons and gods, these Easter Island huge volcanic monoliths, with prehistoric and African, all primitive rebelling loci in the Freudian and group unconscious, Rilke's buried guilty river god of the blood, verborgen and schuldigen Flussgott des Bluts, had heaved up to seize their day. Yeats to Florence Farr, 1890, has the magical Armageddon begun at last? Though in the ambivalence of Picasso, what had begun as rape could always be methodized and refined to seduction, this 1910 girl with a mandolin suspends the languor and elegance of blue and rose in formal analysis, detached as Proust's study of the essence of things, à la recherche du temps perdu, 1909-13, fragments of existence removed outside the realm of time. While Debussy, in the preludes of the same years, has begun a systematic avoidance of key center by use of the whole tone scale. Which Schoenberg, Berg, and Webern continually advanced toward the technique of the 12-tone row. Here Schoenberg of 1911. Also by 1911, Braque, working as one with Picasso, had brought the abstraction of things to a threshold of corrugated space, a tensile geometry beyond which in one sense art could not go. Yet to ring the changes on that non-objective claim would take half a century. In 1378, Theophanes the Greek had frescoed the Cathedral of the Transfiguration in Novgorod, Russia. That the Eastern Slavs, in the time of Chaucer's humanity and lusty realism, should have held to the crypts of world-dissolving and otherworldly power with which Dostoevsky's mystics still contend, dramatizes in The Leap to the Modern what Trotsky calls the messianism of backwardness. In Troponin's ideal portrait of his son, about 1818, the old theophany yields, as with this Glinka or the untranslatable Pushkin, to a radiant opposite, fruit of liberal England, revolutionary France, and romantic Germany. Trust in the worth of man and world, though Pushkin complements that glow with Byronic irony. In Troponin's picture, the giveaway flush of sentiment takes us back to Rousseau. The Russians will never be perfectly civilized because their civilization was attempted too hastily. Takes us forward to Dostoevsky's depiction of the possessed heirs of such enlightened dream. In the early century, quickening toward war and revolution, Russia's avant-garde leap was extraordinary, though made it would turn out mostly in exile. At the time of this 1909 village scene, Kandinsky was 43, had absorbed Impressionism 25 years before, was living near Munich at Murnau, and was just entering the crucial phase of his art when he would found with Franz Marc the Blauer Reiter, in touch with the musical iconoclasm of Stravinsky, Schoenberg, the Scriabin of this 1910 Prometheus poem of fire. Through fauve mastery, Kandinsky was advancing toward a mystical color music in which objects would disappear. This 1911 All Saints picture, Trumpeting Angel Above, of which the artist wrote, "In many ways art is similar to religion. Was the New Testament possible without the Old? Could our third revelation be thinkable without the second? That Superman judgment clue, with subsequent abstractions, flood and canon turned to vital ecstasy, lift us on the tide of new apocalypse, which also inspired Scriabin."